While I was wondering about it all, M. Hamel mounted his chair. He took his chair and, in the same grave, gentle tone which he had used to me, said, now this is another 2 marks of question. What was thunderclap to France? Thunderclap means shocking words. क्या होगा? When M. Hamel announced, what he announced, written over here in inverted commas, my children, this is the last lesson I shall give you. The order has come from Berlin to teach only German in the schools of Alsace and Lorraine. The new master comes tomorrow. This is your last French lesson. I want you to be very attentive. See here, commas closed. So this announcement was a thunderclap to France, and in board exam you have to write like this only, that what was the thunderclap to France. And what a thunderclap these words to me, shocking words. Oh, the wretches, those people, that was what they had put up on the town hall. So wretches here are German people. Now France able to understand that why there was a crowd at bulletin board, because their orders were put up on it, on the bulletin board, that German will be imposed. My last lesson. Now next 2 paragraph deals with the thoughts of France as soon as he heard this thing. My last French lesson. I hardly knew how to write. I should never learn any more. I must stop there then. Now he is just remorseful, repentful for not learning French or not giving importance to M. Hamel or his teachings. Oh, how sorry I was not for learning my lessons, for seeking birds, eggs, or going sliding on the Sar. Sar means swings. My books that had seemed such a nuisance a while ago, so heavy to carry, my grammar, my history book, now old friends, now become old friends. And M. Hamel too, the idea that he was going away, that I should never see him again, made me forget all about his cranky nature. Okay, cranky means rebuke, full of, you can say, rebukefulness. So cranky nature. Poor man. Now this is very important question. Poor man here is M. Hamel. Okay. Poor man. It was in honor of this last lesson he had put his fine Sunday clothes. And now I understood why the old men of village were sitting there in the back of the room. Now after this, France able to realize everything, that why atmosphere of classroom is different today. It was because they were sorry too that they had not gone to school more. It was their way of thanking master for the 40 years of faithful service and of showing their respect for the country that was theirs no more. So that means village elders were sitting there to pay respect to M. Hamel for 40 years of faithful service. While I was thinking of all this, I heard my name. It was my turn to recite. What would I not have given to be able to say that dreadful rule of participle all through? Very loud and clear and without one mistake. He was thinking that I will tell sir everything. But now, what happened? I got mixed up on the first words and stood there, holding on to my desk, my heart beating and not daring to look up. I heard M. Hamel say to me, whatever expected by France, everything opposite happened. I won't scold you, little France. You must feel very bad enough. See how it is. Every day we have said to ourselves. Now see, Mr. M. Hamel in a very kind and polite manner wanted to tell everything to the people there, village people and France, that why you should give importance to your language. So see what he said, that you always say people that I have plenty of time, I will learn it tomorrow, and now you see where we have come out. You have not given importance to your language. Now the day comes when you have to leave it. Ah, that's a great trouble with Elsie. She puts off learning till tomorrow. Theme of procrastination. We always keep on thinking that we will do this work tomorrow or complete this work tomorrow. But when time goes, nothing will then we will able to catch. Now those fellows out there will have the right to say, how is it you pretend to be Frenchmen and you can neither speak nor write your language, but you are the not worst poor little France. Now because this is very important question, we have all a great deal to reapproach ourselves with. Reapproach means here rethink, and this word is said, this line is said for parents as well as teachers, because Both parents and teachers were not able to create interest in the school. How? Parents were more interested to send their children in the farm and mill to earn money, and teachers like Mr. M. Hamel sometimes wanted to enjoy fishing, and he asked his students to water the garden. So parents and teachers both were responsible for not having interest in the learning by the students. That's why line is written over here. We have all a great deal to reapproach ourselves with. I hope you have understood the chapter till now. So this chapter is going in a way that M. Hamel's last lesson was there, and he was telling everything about the students about the importance of French language. See, here it is written, your parents were not anxious enough to have you learn. They prefer to put you to work on a farm or at the mills. See, in NCERT, beta, everything is given here. All answers are given. It's very important to read it line to line, very seriously, so as to have a little more money. And I have been to blame also. Have I not often sent you to water my flowers instead of learning your lessons? And when I wanted to go to fishing, did I not just give you a holiday? So M. Hamel himself blaming blaming to himself in front of France and the village people, that somehow I am also responsible for not having interest in the school by the students. Then from one thing to another thing, M. Hamel went on to talk of the French language, saying that it was the most beautiful language in the world, the clearest, most logical, that we must guard it among us and never forget it. Because when a people are enslaved, now this is very important, 6 marks of statement question. What is the question? Elaborate the statement. When a people are enslaved, as long as they hold fast to their language, it is as if they had the key to the prison. That means if from tomorrow onwards you will have to go for German, but if you have a hold over your French language, you will not be enslaved as far as your language is concerned. It is a key to the prison. Then he opened a grammar and read us our lesson. I was amazed to see how well I understood it. Now see, very important line. France today is very interested in listening to Mr. M. Hamel. That's why today he is able to understand everything. See, I was amazed to see how well I understood it. All he said seemed so easy, I think too, that I had never listened so carefully. Francis admitting this thing, and then he had never explained everything with so much patience. It seemed almost as if the poor man wanted to give us all he knew before going away and to put it all in our heads at one stroke. So, these are the thoughts of France, that today M. Hamel wanted to tell everything about French language because today is his last lesson. After the grammar, we had a lesson in writing. That day M. Hamel had a new copies for us, written in a beautiful round hand, France Alsace, France Alsace. They looked like little flags floating everywhere in the schoolroom, hung from the road at the top of our desks. You ought to have seen how everyone set to work and how quiet it was. Now see, atmosphere of classroom is related here. The only sound was the scratching of pens over the paper. Once some beetles flew in, but nobody paid attention to them, not even the little ones who worked right on tracing their fish hooks, as if that was French too. So nobody was interested in anything other than listening to Mr. M. Hamel. Everybody was quite interested and attentive towards M. Hamel, what he wanted to say. On the rooftop, the pigeons cooed very low, and I thought to myself, this is again beta 6 marks of question, will they make them sing in German, even the pigeons? So this line reflects the urge to rebel on part of France. That means he was not ready to accept German as his language. So he said that whether Germans wanted to capture hearts and minds of human beings, we French people, whether they be able to capture the mind and hearts of birds like pigeons. So this line reflects the attitude of rebelliousness, urge to rebel by France. Whenever I looked up from my writing, I saw M. Hamel sitting motionless in his chair and gazing first at one thing, then another thing, as if he wanted to fix in his mind just how everything looked in that little room. So, M. Hamel, at this point, he was just keen in looking the room here and there. Fancy for 40 years he had been there in the same place, with his garden outside the window and his class in front of him. So M. Hamel wanted to capture each and every moment of this last day in this school where he had served 40 years. Just like that, only the desks and the benches had been worn smooth. The walnut trees in the garden were taller, and the hope vine, this is the name of the plant, creeper plant, that he had planted himself, twined about the windows to the roof. How it must have broken his heart to leave it all, poor man. To hear his sister moving above in the room, packing their trunks, for they must leave the country next day. Now, see, it is written over here. They had to leave the country. There means M. Hamel and his sister. They leave the country next day because now no longer French will be taught in the schools. But he had the courage to hear every lesson to the very last. After the writing, we had a lesson in history, and then the babies chanted their Babi Boo. Down there at the back of room, old Hauser had put on his spectacles and holding his primer in both hands, spelled the letters with them. You could see that he too was crying. His voice also trembled with emotions. It was so funny to hear him that we all wanted to laugh and cry. How well I remember this last lesson, that last lesson. Now, as Franz was thinking all this, all at once the church clock struck 12. Very emotional and very calm atmosphere in the classroom, because now it's a time for M. Hamel to leave the classroom. Then the Angelus, it is related to the Roman Catholic time. At the same moment, the trumpets of the Prussians returning from drill sounded under our windows. M. Hamel stood up very pale in his chair. I never saw him look so tall. Tall here means serious, in a very serious tone. My friends, said he, I. Now see, what is the significance of I here? Here these words signify that M. Hamel's voice is choked. He was so full of emotions that he was unable to speak more. But something choked him. He could not go on. He could not able to speak now. Then he turned to the blackboard, took a piece of chalk, and bearing on with all his might, collecting all his strength, he wrote as large as Vive la France, that is France Zindabad. Then he stopped and leaned his head against the wall, and without a word he made a gesture to us with his hand. School is dismissed, you may go. Now see, at the end of the chapter, M. Hamel was so emotional that he was unable to speak even a single word. That's why on blackboard he had written Vive la France, France Zindabad. And after that he just left the classroom without anything, just a gesture of the hand of goodbye. So see, in the end of the chapter he left the classroom. That means from next year onwards, new teacher will come to teach only German. So that's why M. Hamel, who was a French teacher, it was his last lesson, because from next year onwards French will be banned in the schools of Alsace and Lorraine districts because of the result of the Franco-Prussian War, where Germans defeated French and they wanted to impose their language in the school. So this chapter deals with the theme of linguistic chauvinism, that is love for one's own language. And people of France realized on this last day of the school that how important their language was to them. Before that they had not given any importance to this French language. So this is all about last lesson.